Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is an NYC indie pop rocker with over half a decade of releases under his belt. Picking up speed and momentum with every release, there's truly no slowing him down. Welcome, DK Lyons.
Thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. I always like to start with where your music journey all began.
Yeah, it started when I was a little kid, honestly. I remember being like 5 years old and riding in the car with my dad while he played Tom Petty albums. And I kind of just fell in love with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, like very young age, and said, I want to do that. And started writing down song titles when I was like 6 years old. I'd like literally type them on my mom's computer and like print them out and just sit there with like a tennis racket, pretending to play guitar and singing words out loud. And the words would obviously change every single time, but the songs titles stayed the same. And then from there, just kind of progressed on and on, through starting to write lyrics out, obviously, like on notebook paper during class in like elementary school when I was supposed to be doing homework, and then teaching myself how to play guitar in high school and learning GarageBand, and then eventually getting into a proper studio after college, and really like getting into what it means to record and take music seriously after kind of just doing it on the side for a long time. But it was one of those things that I kind of knew all along. This was like the thing I wanted to do in life, and reality sets in and you think you need to go down other paths. And then after going to school and starting a career in corporate America, I was like, no, I really want to do this music thing. Like, it's the thing I go to sleep at night thinking about. It's what I wake up thinking about. It's what's distracting me from doing my real work all day, every day. So like, I should give this my every effort possible to like honor that passion. And so it's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
I mean, corporate America doesn't really at all compare or match up, or, it doesn't stand a chance against any sort of creative endeavor, especially, maybe I'm biased, but especially music. So I think, I think you're making the right choice on that one. I think that's a no-brainer, but like, it's just as easy to like, it's like, oh, of course, follow your passion, do the thing that you want to do. But it's also, you kind of get the, like, we're not making the safer choice, right?
Right.
We're not doing things just for the comfort and the like, the safety net. It's like it's like your safety school, your safety job, your backup plan. It's just not as fun.
It's not, and I don't want to take away anything from people that choose that choice, because it probably does lead to fulfillment in a lot of areas of life. If
Hmm.
you have solid amounts of disposable income that you're not spending on plugins and promotional materials for music and things like that. But no, I am actually very lucky though that my corporate job is in a creative field where I don't think I'd be where I am right now with my music had I not gone down that path where
Okay.
I work in advertising, so I make videos for a living, albeit for brands, and it's very soul sucking at times when you start to peek behind the curtain and see what goes into making your favorite 30-second ad that you see on TV.
Mm.
But I've met so many amazing people throughout the process and become I think that's why I put such an emphasis on music videos, because that's a very big part of my life in terms of visual storytelling. And I'm able to do it kind of myself without having to like spend thousands of dollars. I can concept, and I've got friends that'll help me shoot, and I edit everything myself. And it's really helped push like that additional layer of the storytelling that comes with the music, being able to have this like visual world that goes along with every song.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good, like, it's a good sense of it's a good mix. I was gonna say a good balance, but it's a good mix of like where it's like with advertising. Like, I do social media outside of all of my and like communications and stuff. So it's like I have that sort of like there's a creative element to it, but it's still corporate and it's still
Mm,
like a real normal job, if you will. But it's not like there's some people that like to just completely detach from it, or sometimes get too close of like want to also work in the music industry when
right.
like those jobs within themselves are already like a whole, like, that's, you want to talk about like taking on a lot of workload, like that's like music and sports, like that's where it's like the
Yeah,
entertainment world is just, it's too over, like you're not going to have any time to find that balance for your own stuff. And like if you do something completely normal, or like people that like to just like have no problem just like doing like the waiting tables thing as like their other piece, because it's like completely detached from the music. It's like I feel like when you have like something that still taps into part of that creative brain, um it kind of, you know, it keeps that piece of your brain working even when you're not doing it for your own pursuits. That
yep,
it's kind of
exactly.
like, and like you said, like you have this skill set that you now get to use, and your music and your artistry gets to like benefit from because you know how to do things from the job that you have. So it's a
Exactly.
nice, you know, it's like we're like right in the middle of like detached to like way too on the nose and way too like all in one. You know, you can live and breathe it and you can love it that much, but like it doesn't have to be every like, you know, it doesn't have to be all consuming. Then it might just be too much. You do so much music during the day in the industry, then you how much energy are you going to have left for your own endeavors, you know?
100%. I mean, I know you brought up sports. Like I initially thought I was going to go into baseball because that was kind of like my other passion. And
Okay.
I went to school for that and had friends that did end up doing the grind. And I have a friend now who's like a very high up position at a baseball team, and he had to grind to get there. And I think he's lost a little bit of his like love for the game because he's been so close to it for so long. And I think, you know,
Mm,
I think that can happen when you are like right in the thick of the thing that you want to be doing so much. And for him, that's great because that is his whole job and that's his life. But, you know, to your point about working in the music industry, yeah, totally. I don't think I would have the same motivation if I was grinding all day, every day on other people's music and trying to promote their stuff and then getting home and then having to do the same thing for mine. Whereas it's like
right.
using the creative brain a little bit. I'm able to, you know, work on stuff that's like parallel to what I'm trying to do. But then when I, you know, turn to music at night or first thing in the morning before work, it's a little bit of a switch where I'm still fresh in that kind of like, you know, that output.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. What do you find most often inspires a lot of your writing?
So many things. I feel like every artist is like the world, and it's true though. Like, no, I also because I've been doing this so long, honestly, like I kind of feel like I got a lot of the very like, oh, I'm feeling the feeling. Let me just like write down that feeling and turn it into a whole song, like part kind of out of my system. Where like I've written so many songs in my life that will never see the light of day because they're not good. And like I feel like I had to go through all of that to learn how to write better songs. And now I'm very much more into like having layers to everything. So I'm more interested in creating projects that have individual songs that can sit on their own and be about a very specific thing, but it's part of like a greater whole. And so I think I take inspiration like through that lens where like the last EP I put out was during a period of time where I was really questioning like can true love exist in the modern context of the world, and then trying to like translate that through my own experience I've seen through family members of mine, experience of the world itself and technology, and it all kind of just like laddering back to that concept. So I was really kind of just had my antennas up for like that specific thing. And then future projects, it's kind of like different things. Like I want to have a project at some point that tells more stories about like what I've learned from like friends and family in my life about things that aren't related to love. And so I'm kind of just like my antennas are then up for that. So it is the world, it's all the people around me, it's my triumphs, my pain. Like, you know, sometimes it is digging back into something that I was feeling when I was 16 because something sparked that now. So it's very varied and all over the place, but I like kind of organizing it all under certain larger concepts or themes as I'm like trying to move something forward.
No, I love a project that's like has an overall like I always like a thesis kind of thing
Mhm.
where
Yep.
it's like you're making a statement with, and like you said, I like that you said songs that can stand on their own but also like contribute to a greater picture, because I feel like sometimes, especially in like the current landscape, and maybe we're kind of getting a little bit more away from that because it's kind of dwindled down, but like, you know, we're in the world of singles and releasing so often and doing all these things like at a rapid rate compared to what the norm used to be, because we live in the age of the algorithm and that's just the way
Right.
that it is. because somehow we got to a point where Spotify runs everything and like decides when we're supposed to do all these things. But with the like like I feel like it it kind of led to people just having like thinking of things very one off, because all it's just about like the next single. Like we're like nobody's, even if people are piecing things then into projects, like they're not always like, it's like if you ask somebody why they put all these songs together on an EP or an album, like I don't know that they necessarily have like a intentional answer. Whereas like, you know, it stems from this game of singles. It's like I mean I did it 2 years ago where I was just like, and like none of those songs fit together. I didn't put them all together, so at least there's that. But like it was just very like, you know, whatever it was, and then it didn't have to fit in a box with anything else, because it just was able to just be a single. So there's no limitation in that way. And but there's also then at that point no direction. And it's like, well, how do you craft a narrative as an artist? How do you kind of really convey, you know, like a point, or, you know, a thought or a perspective or anything like that, if it's just these one-off little moments? Like I love albums and like multi-track projects to begin with, and ones that are like intentionally like, no, like these are all supposed to be like, these are all thematically together. They might not all say the same thing, because if we say the same thing 10 times across 10 different tracks, that might get old. But they're all on the same page, and they're all like connected, and it's intentional. Like, let's bring back what you're doing and let's be intentional with it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my end, the way that I've been thinking about it the last few years is I've started to go down this route. Because like my first EP and my first album were kind of more not conceptual really at all. They're kind of just like, let me put together like
Mm-hmm.
the greatest hits of like the 300 songs I wrote in my early 20s and boil them down to an EP and an album. But then from there, I've become more interested in that thought of a concept album or telling a story that kind of is a movie style narrative. Because to your point, like there are however many thousands of songs released on Spotify every day. And I'm not really interested in like adding to the pile at all. Like if I'm going to do something, I want it to be interesting and something that like is contributing to, you know, pushing things forward and not just adding to the same pile. And I agree 100%. I've actually been doing a really fun exercise the last like 4 months or so. Is say we will about the list, but like I went through Rolling Stone's like top 500 albums, and I'm like, all right, I want to listen. I started at the top because I was like, I want to start with the good stuff. But like going through and seeing like what does make a great album, and to your point, it is like usually a strong collection of songs that can live on their own, but they have this thematic tie, whether it's with the lyrics and the intended message, or there's a musical kind of flow or style to it, or they're doing something production wise that is makes it feel very cohesive. And I think like this is my optimistic brain, like looking for patterns and hoping for the future. But if you look back, like the proliferation of radio and like singles in the 50s was really, really prominent, right? It was all about make as much music as you can, get as many singles out as you can. It was when, you know, bands like the Beatles were putting out 2 or 3 albums a year that didn't have any real thematics to them. And then once that kind of became saturated, you then had the Beatles making concept albums, and you had Led Zeppelin, and you had Stevie Wonder, and you had all of these like iconic artists making the greatest albums of all time that usually, you know, a lot of them tend to come from that 60s, 70s era when people were being more intentional about albums. And then I think we're hopefully in a period now where it's like, okay, we're kind of getting like the 50s out of our system again with Spotify. We're kind of moved past this like crave for singles, and then kind of now move into like, yeah, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's tell meaningful stories that you know, you want to go back and listen to because there's layers to them. And like I know the word lore has been like thrown around a lot, like in kind of a kitschy way, but like there is something to that. Like you used to crave like, oh, like this new project from a band, like we haven't heard from this band for 2 years, and now like they're dropping all these like coded messages, and there's all these different layers to like the music that's being teased out, and then there's this whole world that gets built for this era. And I think Taylor Swift obviously like did a good job of monetizing like the whole era concept. And I think that's a lot more interesting than like following an artist who's just dropping a single every 6 weeks to try and like trick the algorithm. And it may be a great song, but like I'm gonna forget about it because it's not placed within something that really makes me want to know more, not just about the music, but like the artist and their story and what their concept is for what they're doing.
Yeah. No, and I think you made a really good point with like how saturated like it's I mean, like the saturation plays a big factor in it. It's not just like because it is like you at the end of the day you're just kind of at a very like bare minimum amount. Like you're just kind of throwing it into the abyss that is already like just you're throwing it into a landfill that's already piled like 20 feet high kind of thing. And so you're just contributing to a big pile of like, well, who's gonna like do anything with this? And so if you're just sitting with throwing out the next song and it doesn't extend into anything further beyond that, that's where like that's where it lives and that's where it dies. Like it just kind of the story, the the projection of how far it's going to go. That's it. It lives in that little bubble around the like 2 week period around the release, and then that's just that. And I do think from the industry side, like I think we realized that that got old really quick. And I didn't even realize that it was like the 50s did this first. I thought streaming just broke everything. But apparently history does repeat itself. So
I may be
um
grabbing at straws there a little bit, but like the parallels are there for sure.
yeah, I never knew that that was the way that it once was. Which I guess then we can't fully blame it on streaming, but it's just like what are we doing? Like we did this once and it didn't really work and now we're doing it again. But you could say that about a lot of things probably, right? But yeah, so it's like if you don't have something to extend beyond the song itself, like you're just trying to have a moment. You're trying to have a you're doing actions that are like trying to achieve a moment, but you're thinking that what you're doing is trying to like build something bigger, like I don't know if that entirely made sense, but like it's like you in your head you're thinking that I'm doing something that's like making a step forward for myself as an artist and like trying to build momentum, trying to do all these things, whatever, but all you're doing is just like having a blip in the pan that's like it's then you're right back where you started. Like you have that little peak and then the line just goes right back to where it was.
100%. I think you see that a lot right now where like it's been going on for a half decade or more where record labels are looking for you to go viral on TikTok, right? And that's all they
Mm-hmm.
care about. And you see all these artists that have their moment because they went viral on TikTok and they created a song that was built for TikTok and maybe didn't really contain anything beyond that. And some artists do end up turning that into like fairly fruitful careers, but a lot of them have their moment and then aren't able to replicate that flash in the pan and then disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my whole take on it is like, I would rather keep doing what I'm doing and like make work that I like and care about and be intentional with putting together projects and like not subscribing to that and never get to that point rather than I think ever have a flash in the pan, get a taste of it from going down that route and then seeing it disappear immediately and then not knowing what to do with myself, like it's easy to say that I think from the armchair position, but like I truly do believe that because yeah, again, there's just like so many other thousands of artists out there that all want the same thing, um, and you're kind of playing the lottery a little bit. And I think you'd be better off like rolling up your sleeves and just going to your 9 to 5 job and putting in the work and hoping that that turns into something that's more sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think oh gosh, it was just in my head and now it's gone. Oh, I I could go on and on down this rabbit hole for way too long, but all I'm gonna say to what you just said is like viral only matters and only like counts for something if you have the system and the structure and like foundation in place to be able to withstand it.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, like I said, like that moment, you might have that like your 15 seconds of fame or whatever it is, and then it just goes right back to where you started. If you
Right.
don't have any, like, because like you see I've seen it. It's like you have the people that are like they'll play a new song, and then people are like, "Well, when is it going to be out?" And then it's like 3 months later that it like actually, it's like if you don't have that thing ready to go, people don't care about it anymore because there'll be a
Right.
different new song that they're like, "Oh, this is really good. This is really cool. I want to actually like be able to listen to it."
Yep.
So unless you can actually like like unless you're like locked and ready to go, just like to push whatever out that needs to be, because you don't also like you don't know how any things like the viral, you can't just make that happen. That just happens. It's like you're just you're all kinds of screwed if that's what you're banking on. That's the moral of the story.
I think your word choice was so powerful though, where you said withstand. I think that's the really key part to it, right? Like you
Hmm.
have to have that foundation in place. And I think that's something that I really thought about last year when I was making my last project. I was kind of like building the plane as I was flying it, like the corporate people like to say. And like I was making the music and like building the promo and doing all of that at the same time and kind of like burnt myself out on all of it and like didn't really reach the goals I was hoping for because I didn't have the right foundational systems in place. And so I kind of just like took 3 months at the end of last year to like tear everything down and just like rebuild properly. And I feel a lot more like confident than I did before, just because I do have that kind of like base layer system behind me. And it also, I think, gives freedom to do more fun things like that. When you know you're playing with house money a little bit, where you're like, yeah, I could just go play this like one clip online today because I've already made the song and like it's already ready to go. And I already have,
Right.
I can pivot and do different things. Though if it doesn't go viral, then I'm not like, well, what do I do now? It's like, yeah, like I think once you kind of take a little more intentionality with building out like a system for yourself, like it gives you a lot more freedom to play in a bunch of different lanes rather than just like going for broke in one avenue and either getting it and then to your point, like, okay, like what do I do now? Or putting all your eggs in that one basket and not working out and thinking, well, I didn't go viral, so I must be terrible. And it's like, no, there's there's another way.
It's not 0 to 100 all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in the intentionality, like you said, that's a big piece of the puzzle is like, because I think a lot of it's a game of scrambling, because
It
it's
is.
like we constantly have to be doing this, that, and the other thing to like just break even it theoretically,
Mhm.
there's all these bars that you're supposed to, or like cadences that we're supposed to keep up with. Again, I don't know who made those rules. They didn't make the rules in terms of, or in with any thought towards what's actually sustainable, but
No, like I wasn't
um
consulted for
yeah.
you. Like
What?
I wasn't consulted about the rules. Were you?
No. No one asked me what I thought. I don't know who came up with this. It's like the people that are like so far removed from like doing the actual work are the ones that are like making all the big decisions, and it's like, "Oh, so we just have to like deal with this now."
Yep, 100%.
So
The world
that
reveals.
feels a little corporate.
Yes, that does.
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would it be called?
That is a great question. Um, like I can't think of anything pinpoint off the top, but like I used to joke around with like the my mentor who like taught me everything I know about like production music making. Like I was like I kind of not invented, but like I kind of coined like a new type part of a song, and it's not like a verse or a chorus or a bridge. It's like the catharsis moment. And
Mm,
like it doesn't necessarily fit any of those one things. It might be like a chorus where you change up the words because you've learned something by the end of it. Because I tend to think of songs as like mini movies. Like the story always needs to move forward, and there's always going to be an ending to it. Like if repeating a chorus for the third time doesn't close the story, then I'm not going to do that. If it does, then great. Like you'll hear it a third time. So like cathartic pop or something like in
okay.
that range. Like not all my music is meant to be fully cathartic, but I think that just that idea of like an emotional payoff at the end of every song, I think is kind of what gets me excited and is kind of like my what I end up doing more often than not. I'd say when I write music.
No, I like that, and I like that. Like you said, it's like it's again with the rules. Like I don't know who made these rules, but I don't necessarily feel like I always want to follow them because they
Yeah,
don't always benefit me. It's like there's sometimes like a natural, just from like being a music person, there's sometimes like a natural point of like, oh well, it just like just the typical thing to do would be like you said, like add another chorus here or do this, but it's like we also can like not have those rules and like not have to do those things, and like if we just, and I very much appreciate the when like the lines in a chorus will change, like like even if it's like there's three of them and they each change a little bit, or if it's like just the last one changes, because it's like because when you pick up on those things and you catch it, it's like, because you're expecting it to go the way that it went before, and now it's going somewhere different. And it's like, well, why did it go somewhere different? And it means more when you change it. Um, you're saying all the right things for me today. So thank you for that.
Well, I mean,
But
you're clearly just an appreciator of music. So I,
but yeah, it's like we don't it I I think on the last interview I did, I had a lot of conversation about like sometimes I wish there were rules of like I wish like when you're like because music is so subjective that it's like I want to know that like what I'm doing is like it good or not, and like you don't always have the automatic sense of that, but at the same time it's like it's great that there's not rules. Like this is the opposite of that, where it's like I want to be able to make like I want to the song to go wherever I want it to go, and I don't want it to go somewhere because that's what I'm supposed to do.
100%.
It's that's where like, it's creative work. Who would have thought we had options to make choices? But yeah, I like the catharsis throw in there
Yeah,
to tie
no,
it
I
all
mean,
back to your original answer.
no, and I agree too because I am like very much a mixture of like left and right brain. So I like structure and I like rules, and then I also like anarchy and coloring outside the lines and all those things. And I feel like for me, where I'm at with music now is kind of a place where I get a little bit of both, where like I definitely need rules when it comes to producing, like making sure like no,
Mhm.
like you need like this is your plug-in order on your bass to make sure it does X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, it'll sound like crap, and like everyone in the industry will think you're a joke. Like, cool, that's good. If I can stay within those lines and have like a baseline of like, yeah, these are the basic rules for production. That then gives me a little bit of room to go be creative and play around with things and like
Mhm.
break other rules and things like that. So for me, at least, like having certain constraints is helpful and makes me feel like I do have the freedom to then break other rules, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I mean, it's like I feel like it's when you're given like directions on something where it's like if it's like very to the T, then you're already tightened so much and restricted within this box of like criteria that it's like it's hard to do anything because of how limited it is. But on the opposite side of that, if you're just given a blank piece of paper, like where do you even like then you have no guidelines, you have no direction, and then it's just like begin. And it's kind of like you have to find an in between because like you want it to still, I mean, it's creative, period. So you
Right.
want it to like stay that way. But like it's also nice to, and especially like I think something that I've picked up like over time is like the more and more I am in the music world, the more and more I'm like, I like it's easier to be like yes to this and no to that,
Mhm.
because you like not like in general, but also like just from your own perspective is like this works for me, this doesn't. Like I like this, I don't like that. You kind of have to have like there's some like general the rules of thumb, really, right? Like it's you kind of have to have a overall rules of thumb.
100%. I
Rule of
actually
thumbs?
think, yeah,
Rules of thumb?
rules of
Rule of
thumb.
thumbs?
Yeah.
I don't,
I
which one's
actually
plural? I
don't.
don't know.
No, I think like what's really annoying about growing up is that your parents were right. And when they say like like everything in moderation, right?
Hmm.
Like life's a balance. Like I grew up like wanting things to be very binary, like black and white, yes or no.
Mm.
And everything is very much in the middle and finding that middle ground. And I think the other annoying thing is that the only way you get to that middle ground, which is what you were just hitting on, is experience. Like
Hmm.
making enough music, trying enough things, learning from enough people to get a grasp of like what your ear is drawn to, what flows out of you when you sit down with that blank piece of paper, what kind of structure you need versus not structure. And I think that only comes from just doing it a ton. And for me, like I learn by failing and by failing fast and hard and all of that. And I just kind of like accept that now as part of my process. Is like, yeah, instead of like sitting down with a set of rules, like I'm just gonna do this thing and like I'll get to the point where I'm happy with it by failing, but also now knowing having failed 1,000 times what I'm looking for, where my ear is drawn, what I find is the right fit for this song or whatever the visual like whatever it might be. And that only comes from letting go of yes, no, black or white, and just trusting your experience after doing it enough times, I feel like.
Yeah. No, and I think I have always been an advocate for, I've always said that I think the yes means more when you've heard the no. You know,
Mm.
like
Hmm.
the yes
Yeah.
means more when you've like had to try these things and had them not work out. Like if you got the first job that you applied for, that's like, okay, I got a job. But it's like if you had all these different interviews and nothing was going your way, and then finally one kind of, turns up and you get a good, you get the job, like that, it means more when you've like had to experience the, the obstacles, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, Making too many corporate references now. Once we started on the like corporate job train, now in my brain's just like,
We got to get out of it.
you know, we'll circle back.
Oh, God.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really important perspective, like you said, to like not even necessarily want to fail because that's
Yeah.
a whole thing, but like at least to like accept it and be fine with it and just take it as a part of the process. Cause that's if you it's only the end if you let it be the end. It's a
Mm.
part of the process if you continue the process, So it's kind of like the what's the saying where it's like if you believe you can or you can't, then you're right.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, that's failing's a part of life.
No, it is, and you learn more from like. There's so many like cliche idioms about it, but like they are true, and you live long enough, you figure that out and come to accept it, and I think all it is like once you have that experience, like I'm trying to think of a good like example of it, but it's like the first time like you fall off a bike, right? Like it really hurts and you skin your knees and you're like, wow, that was awful. I never want to do that again. Um, But then like the next like actually I'll take it to skiing because I'm a skier. I love skiing. Like the first time you fall skiing and it like you get all the snow up in you and it hurts, you're like, yeah, that was awful. But then you figure out how to get back up and you're like, oh, okay, like I won't do that again. And then you invariably do it again and you're like, oh, that wasn't as bad because I knew what it was going to be like. So there's like an element to like once you've kind of gotten over those first big failures, like you start just understanding like what the process is going to be like, how it's going to hurt, yeah, but then like you will get yourself up and you'll come back from it. And like for instance, pulling it into the music realm, I'd started working on this next project of mine back in the fall, and I was like working off a hard drive, and I'd spent 100 hours like on these new songs, and I was coming back from like a work trip, and I left the drive on the plane and I like found out like 9 hours later, and I was like, "Huh, okay, like cool." That would be awful if I lost 100 hours of work and had to start over from scratch. But like, I kind of didn't overreact to it in any way. And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go through the process. I'm gonna like flag it. I'll do everything in my power to get this thing back, and then I just have to like come to terms with the fact that like I might not get this back, and I can't go back in time." And like had to sit on it for a weekend, being like, "Okay, like I guess I'm mentally preparing to like start this project from scratch again." And they found the drive and I got it back and I was like, okay, like like lesson learned, like okay, now I'm going to make sure that I've got copies in 4 different places in a given time and I'm just like better about X, Y, and Z so this doesn't happen again. But because I'd already gone through, other versions of that same kind of like, oh, like I'm facing an uphill battle or having to redo work or like whatever it is, so I was kind of just like, I'm going to handle what I can handle and whatever happens, like I will pivot as a result from there, you know what I mean? And like obviously so glad and grateful that I got the drive back, but I was mentally prepared to move on from it. And it was kind of just like, that's reality. Like that would have been reality and I would have dealt with it. So I think that just came from like failing so many times before and having to like, get back up afterwards.
You're a bigger person than I am because I would have lost my mind. I've had issues with hard drives more times than I can count, but like, and I like I've lost stuff on them and everything, and it's just like that is like to just like it would have taken me a lot longer than it did for you to be like, okay, so this is how it is. Like this so none of that exists in my hands anymore. Okay. That would have I would have needed some grief period on that. So.
Well, to be fair, I also didn't have to go through that grief period because I got the drive back. So I can't
Fair,
speak what my
fair.
mindset would have been like afterwards. I'm sure it would have been pretty dire for a couple days, but
Fair.
I
So you
mean,
were still hopeful in that time that like, hey, it'll find its way back?
I was trying as much as I
Okay.
was like looking up online. I'm like, what is Delta's success rate on finding stuff and all that? But yeah, no, it was definitely a little terrifying, but at the end of the day too, like it wasn't like I was like losing a limb or something. That was like
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there are worse things in the world, but for a minute that probably feels very end all be all.
yeah, it did because I was really excited about the work too, and I would have been really bummed to have to like start from scratch again. But
Yeah.
thankfully, the universe was feeling generous that day and helped me out.
Yeah, the songs were meant to be in the form that they started in. It's not like one of those things like I never am someone who like records anything while I'm like coming up with the idea. Like I try and like write it down after I've like done like just kind of rambled it out and
Yep.
done it that way. And then I at least tell myself that like if it wasn't something that I remembered by the time I went to write it down, it wasn't worth remembering. Like it just like the song wasn't meant to be that way. Or like if you like write something down and then can't remember how it sounded when you like circle back to it like a month later. I
100%.
I try to hold on to the everything happens for a reason as much as I can. But something as dire as that probably would have taken me a little bit longer. I would have had to figure out, start it over, figure just try and do try and do what I can with that, but it would have been a little bit harder than just like forgetting a couple lines that I thought sounded really cool when I first sung them.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, um is there a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? Your one song of like, if you like this, you like the rest, your introduction to the rest of the catalog. What are we opening
Yeah,
up with?
it's always a tough question because I'm one of those people that I'm very much like by the time I've put something out, I've spent so much time on it that I don't really like want to go back and like look at it anymore. I'm always on to like
Mm-hmm.
the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like going back to a song like Road Trip Mixtape that is off my second album is kind of like the soft introduction to me. It's kind of like a big hug, and it's a song that I wrote about my sister, and kind of like our relationship and like a lot of the the struggles that we've gone through life together, and just like a very beautiful like look into like our special relationship. And I think it sound wise and lyric wise and where the song goes is like I think a good synopsis of like everything that like if I was to just like open my mouth and like spew a song out, like that's probably what comes out first.
A little bit of all of the aspects of it, like, like the back to the intention and, trying to actually say something and do something with intention with the song. And I like when people say something that's like earlier on in their catalog because it's like I feel like it's very easy to be like, oh well, that stuff's not as good because this is where you're at now. But it's like also like you're more evolved and you have grown more from who you were when that was a thing. Like that song would probably be better than it is or that it was if it was written now versus before, but
Yeah.
they're all like little cap cap capsules of
Yeah.
like the moment, like time capsules sort of thing. Um sure. So like it's just, it's that moment kind of captured in a song, kind of thing rather than like so it's always I always appreciate because everybody always wants to say the new thing because whatever's new is what's exciting and like, but I also think like something that's more early on is usually um more like at the core of your like it that's more like within that like artistry foundation, if you will.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't usually understand why artists go back and trash the earlier stuff unless it's really like unless they've really leveled up in the piece.
Unless it's
And
actually shit.
you're right, exactly, exactly. No, I mean I very much feel that same way about everything that I've put out to date. And I don't ever feel like it's exactly what I was feeling in the moment, exactly who I
Mhm.
was. It's a little bit of a like to your point, like a more raw look into what the future might have become because I'm starting to learn certain things at that period in time. Um, but also, yeah, I like it also is a great way to look back and think about the things that have stayed the same and core to me and that like are like a pure part of my soul, and then other things that are like to your point also as well, like I've come a long way and I've grown since then, and that's why songwriting and music in general as an artist is such an incredible art form, because it's not like when you're a painter you don't go on tour for 40 years and play the same painting every night, or you don't like as an actor, like Leo's not like going out on a press tour and talking about What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He probably hasn't thought about that movie in 30 years since it came out. But like as an artist, it's like you're going to play these songs like hopefully the rest of your life. And I do think about that a little bit. It's not necessarily like a filter, but I'm like, yeah, like if I'm playing this song as like a 55-year-old, like is it going to be weird at all? Like I don't ever change anything too much because of that, but it is also thinking about like, yeah, like this is a piece of me that I'm putting out in the world that I'm gonna play for a long time. And it's fun looking back now on a song that came out 4 years ago and playing it live and having it feel different and the same at the same time. Like it's just like a really cool, rewarding feedback loop as an artist. I don't know if you feel the same way, to like have that stuff that you're constantly reshaping or reminding yourself of, as like an ongoing time capsule, I guess, of where you've been.
Yeah. No, I always find that, and this is kind of along the lines of what you were saying earlier, is like I always find that like as soon as I'm like putting it out, then I'm like over it for a period of time. Like I just don't want to listen to it, like because I just spent so much time polishing it up and hearing it in every little like iteration of it, so that when it comes out, I'm just like I don't really like just it was mine and now it's everybody else's for a minute. I will regain custody when I feel the need to.
Yes.
But then there is always a moment to like I feel like after a little bit of time has passed and it's like it's not the thing for it's not that thing anymore. So then it's like you can revisit it and like appreciate it for what it was again.
100.
Because it's like when it's new and it's like that's like the time that you kind of like almost need to care about it the most, because that's when it's like, it's like when it's fresh, that's when you're supposed to push it and do all these things for it and all that, and um which I think are important, but it's I try and do that stuff ahead of time so that I just have it,
Yep.
because I don't I don't need to hear it then once. It's also just let me have a break from it. But there have been times where I like will go through and listen to like the catalog playlist of my stuff, and it's like, okay, so there are songs that I like didn't love, but like I knew were worth putting out and everything. But like I listen back and I'm like, no, I have a different appreciation for this now.
Mhm.
Like, like you can't, I just, it's almost like when you go through something and then you like, obviously it sucks for that time period, but then you like look back and you like have something positive to reflect about it from, like whether it's something that you learned from the experience or, if it set you in a path that you are grateful that you went down, like that kind of thing. It's like it's a retroactive appreciation. Like it's a post reflection. I don't know.
Yeah. No, 100. I feel the same exact way. I feel like the last time that I usually enjoy my songs is like right when I'm about to take the demo into like proper recordings. I'm like, I got the adrenaline rush of writing the song and getting this thing out of me, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like what I think it's going to sound like, and I'm like super excited about that.
Yeah.
And then you spend 2 months just like beating your head against the wall, like EQing and comping guitars,
Uh-huh.
and doing vocal takes, and like listening on 16 different speakers over and over again, and hearing like little micro adjustments that you end up making. And by the end of that, like yeah, of course you hate the thing like so much, and then it's time for it to come out, and you're like, no, I need a minute from this thing, but and then you go back to your point later, and then I think for me, it's always playing stuff live is when I get to go back and have that appreciation for it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love the challenge of not even challenge, it's like the adventure of like making something recorded and then bringing it to my band and just like, and my band is very much involved with like my recording process, but like to see like that first time we rehearse it, like what comes out of everyone when we play the song live for the first time, and we don't use like backing tracks or like pieces of the record. Like I really like the idea of like the live version being very different from the
Hmm.
recorded version, and getting to like play it with them and then reinterpolate it gives it new life for me. And then obviously like the feedback when you play it for people and it, you see the reaction to it too is I think that's for me like the redemption arc after like really hating a song right before it comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and live definitely like is where, and because I always think that like the biggest problem I always have is like trying to take it from the just voice and song version that it was when I like first wrote it and translating that into recording, because I feel like as soon as it's recording and it's like you got to keep the time with it and everything, and not that I'm venturing over all these different, I'm just way out of time, but like as soon as it kind of becomes like in a box and very like structured in that way, I feel like it loses some of that. So being able to like, I did a live project as like an anniversary thing for the first album that I did. And I have a live project that I'm in the midst of working on now. And I'm like, I love that it's like free form, like it can just go back to being what it was when it was written or even reimagined in a different way. But it just gets to kind of like have a little breathing room. Like it doesn't need to be like tightened up or like super in any kind of way. And so it's like, it's those moments where the songs get to kind of live in the way that they were originally like captured and
Yeah.
originally, meant to be. It's
Yep.
like, it's just, that's where it's special again. The recorded
100%.
version sounds the same every time, but every single time you play it live, it's going to sound a little bit different.
Right. No, exactly. And there's always it continues to evolve live, and you find things within the song that you never would have discovered when you were recording it because you were just so locked in on one thing. Um, yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that, and it's so cool that you're doing like interpretations of your work like in a live setting. Like I might steal
It's
that
fun. It's
idea.
fun. Yeah, I did, we lived in a different, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were previously in a different city. And I did all of the songs that I made while I was living in that apartment, which was like 2+ years.
Mhm.
And some of them I like that were like very piano based songs. I flipped to guitar and vice versa. It was all just like, it's just me. So it was just me and a guitar or me and a piano. But like being able to like flip them to the other instrument
Mhm.
and like do things like that, like it was like I played songs that I haven't played in forever.
Mhm.
Which was, it's just, yeah. And it especially some of those that I was like, I don't love the way that you turned out. It's nice to like be able to strip it back to the way that I like know it originally and do things with it like that. So, but yeah, I definitely recommend doing, because like honestly, I think like of the ones I did for my original album, I almost like some of the live ones better. Like it's just,
Mhm.
it kind of adds a little bit of something. I love an acoustic vibe. My songs are already very acoustic, but like stripped acoustic is just also
Yeah.
fun. So like steal the idea. I encourage it. You have it. You can take that. I'm happy to share that idea. So, but yeah,
Love it.
if you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Great question. Definitely rooted in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. But then you mix in the 1975. They're probably my second biggest influence. And then throw either a little bit of The Maine or Third Eye Blind in there. And I think that's what you get.
I like Third Eye Blind.
Yeah,
I
they're
love that like, I don't know if you want to call it an era or anything, but like the Matchbox 20, the that right like that little pocket
Gin
of Goo Goo
Blossoms.
Dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like
A huge Goo Goo Dolls fan for sure.
yes.
Yeah, no, that like I definitely like elements of, and honestly like a lot of my favorite Tom Petty is from the 90s as well. Like his Wildflowers album, Into the Great Wide Open. Like
Mm.
I love all his early stuff, but like the 90s are kind of like one of my favorite eras, I think, if not my favorite. And then I think the 1975 really push a lot. I know you can say what you will about Matty Healy and what you think about him, but like A, from a just their albums are always concept based. B, they're not afraid to play in any genre at any given time. Um, and C, I think the like some of the lyrical risk taking is really something that grabs me and keeps me going back for more. So it's a combination of that. I think Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind is an amazing lyricist as well. Like I think if you dig into some of Third Eye Blind's like deep cuts, like there's some amazing, amazing stuff in there beyond just like the songs everyone knows. So yeah, I'd say like those three for sure.
I mean, that's a good like mix of like three different flavors that like can share in a little bit of ways, but also like bring something new to the table. Um, I feel like a lot of times people are like pick one and then pick one that's like completely opposite. And then I say two or three, so you don't have to come up with three, but then they try to come up with a third. And it's like, as soon as you're like trying to close the door on like everybody else you've ever listened to and loved at some point, it's like, oh, this is it's hard to just pick a
Art,
couple people to wrap it up.
sure.
But I think that based on everything that we've talked about with like the intentionality of structuring projects and all these other things, like I think those all make a lot of sense. Always got to throw an OG on there. I mean, Tom Petty's like the first thing that came out of your mouth, so like he's of course got to be on the list.
Got to be on the list. Got to be on the list now.
So
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, obviously, as you said too, there's just dozens that you could consider in contention, but picking three is hard. But at the same time, like, there's none other that I think would be really fighting for that spot. So those are the three that I go back to more than anything else. I think, especially in moments when I know I'm going to be like either in a writing period or gearing up for a live show. Like, I'll go back to, you know, 1975 live concerts and watch those, or I'll go back and watch the Tom Petty documentary, or I'll go back to those artists as kind of like a default, more often than not, because they're so ingrained into like my past and still my present too as an artist.
and I think that from an artistry standpoint is a really important and like important thing to do, important foundation to have is like where the core of your like musicality and your artistry lives. And so surrounding yourself with things that are within that like circle, within that bubble, and not necessarily in a way of like cutting yourself off from everything else there is to consume and um, interact with and everything. But I think artistry in a lot of ways gets lost sometimes, more especially with again like the whole we're in this world of singles and releasing all the time, and so it's like it's hard to really. I feel like artists say that they're artists, but don't really have always that sense of artistry and that sense of like consistent foundation. Like it's just whatever the new song, like whatever fits the new song.
Yeah.
And so having that as like, no, I know who I am as an artist. I know what I want to like portray. I know what I want like musically, like being able to just surround yourself with ways to strengthen that. Um, and we naturally just evolve as people anyway, and you're always exposed to new things. So those things just kind of happen naturally. But like locking into like your core and staying consistent with that is to me what separates those that like say they're artists versus ones that like are like in like a true sense of what an artist is.
Mhm.
Because it's like consistency is a big part of that. And so having that foundation is a big contributor to it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think you can nail on a lot of things there, obviously. And having that foundation is what allows you, like we were talking about earlier, to like experiment more and kind of push yourself out of it and see what feels natural because you know what that baseline is. Like if you don't know who you are and what your artistry is, and you go and experiment with something, you don't have anything to really compare it to because you're kind of just like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I definitely did that earlier in my career for sure. When you're trying to like you see other artists doing X, Y, and Z, you're like, yeah, that's the model. I got to go do that. Like to get that quick kind of like instant gratification that, you know, social media offered for a long time. But then I think, like I mentioned, as I've gotten older, I'm kind of just making music for me at this point. And like growing up, I was always like, I saw artists like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers have this whole career arc and they made all these albums and they had these different eras and they would disappear for a while to go make the Wildflowers album in a cabin with Rick Rubin or whatever. I'm like, you know what? Like, that's what excites me. Like, I'm going to go do that. Like, I'm going to make my art the way that I want to, put it out the way that I want to, and like be content with that because it's very much just feels like what I should be doing as a person because I've gone through these different moments of growing up and exposing myself to the world and all these different things and kind of just coming back to a place of like, no, like these are the 4 or 5 things that make me feel the most like me, and I'm going to do those things.
Yeah. No, and I I think that's definitely, and like you said earlier on, you were kind of in that try different, because it's like we said earlier, it's like it's an experience thing. And so like you need to figure out just as much of like what you do like and what you do align with and what feels authentic to you, just as much you need to figure out what doesn't, because like you have to venture into these. And I feel like the the way that it typically kind of shows itself, if people carry on that path in the, I don't know, normal pace of it or whatever, is like your like genre spread starts out pretty wide and then just kind of like tightens itself up because you might have reached a little too far in that direction for what you really want to like stick with and do consistently. And I think there's always a place for a little outside flavor, but the core of it has to be something that we can identify at the end of the day. Like that's some sort of foundation, some sort of brand, and some sort of sound and artistry in that way is what like that's what you build upon.
Yep.
So
100%.
um yeah. This is the point where I take a question from last week for this week. So the question from the artist from last week is, if your biggest fans came to your concert, what's the vibe? What are they showing up in? Paint the picture.
That is a great question. My fans are showing up not like crazy dressed at all. It is a good mix of people in their 20s and early 30s that know they're coming to dance and sing along. My shows are 100% known for a lot of audience interaction, a lot of call and response, a lot of like fun interplay. So they're coming knowing that they gotta be locked in because I'm gonna be asking things of them during the show. Um, but yeah, no, it's honestly like that's the thing I'm most grateful about. I moved to New York like a little over 5 years ago now. I started playing shows probably about four. It started out just me on a guitar with like backing tracks, and 2 people would show up and they were my friends, and like eventually 5 people would show up. And then at this point now, we built like this amazing little community of people here that come to our shows, and other bands that we play with on bills. And we've kind of just like attracted this little niche group of people that aren't, they're not like the Taylor Swift, vibe. They're not going to a punk show. They're not, it's kind of hard to describe, but there's a feeling, I think, when you show up, that feels very communal, very much like there's not a wall between them and me. We're like all showing up to like do the same thing together, which is really cool.
I like the way that you put that. It's like it's I've never really thought about it as like a wall, but like it's not just my output and you taking it in. It's we all came to do this thing together. Because I think that really like kind of sets things apart sometimes, is like if you just went to hear all the songs live, sometimes you get like sometimes that's all it is. Like sometimes that's all that
Yeah,
the band or the artist will do, but like it doesn't need to be a whole elaborate ordeal, but like a little bit to kind of breach that fourth wall, if you will, goes a long way. At least
100.
even with just, at least if it's at least with the people that were like on the other side of that fourth wall, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in my head, like obviously, like not doing anything groundbreaking, like call and response at shows and all that has been around for a long time. But like, I think a part of my brand is being a little bit like kitschy and like kind of like knowing wink that like I'm being a little silly. So like for one example, like we always close our shows with a song called "Girls of Summer." There's a part of it when we do our like big live electric part where I'm like, all right, like everyone in this room is going to be jumping. Like I'm going to count you in. I'm going to play this guitar solo, and everyone's jumping at the same time. It's like a really fun way to kind of end the show. And it's something like people look forward to. Like I've got people that will tell me all the time, like if you stop closing with that song, like I'm gonna cry. I'm like, okay, like we're never gonna not close that song. But then we played an acoustic rooftop show last summer for my EP release because I wanted to do something different. and it was like a much more intimate environment. Everyone was sitting, and I kind of came up with this like really silly concept, but it kind of felt right because the show itself, like I was kind of going through some stuff, and it was like a fairly emotionally charged show for me. And we got to the part where I was like, okay, like normally we'd all jump up and down, but like we're gonna try something and just like trust me, and we're gonna see if it works. I was like, on the count of four, everything's gonna stop. You're gonna turn to the person next to you and just be like, I really appreciate that you like you. I hope you had a great day. Like I hope like some sort of superlative or just something nice to like the person next to you. And I was like, this is either going to be like the dumbest, kitschiest thing I've ever done, or like it's going to go really well and feel really natural. And it went really well and felt really natural. And everyone had this like moment where the whole show stopped, and everyone like I was talking to my band members, like telling Sophie how much I loved her, my backup singer, and like looking out in the audience, everyone was like having this moment. And I kind of let it simmer, and I was like, all right, like we're all good. And then we got back into the song again and finished out the show. And I had people come up to me afterwards and like, that was really, really cool. And like, I'm really glad we shared that moment. And I was like, yeah, that's what it feels like to be at a DK Lyons show, is like, we're all okay being a little bit cringe and sentimental and like a little over the top, because that's like who I am as a person. And the fact that that showed up so naturally in a show was like, I'm like getting emotional right now. Like that was just like the coolest thing ever.
No, that and would have been crazy to still close with the jumping song, right? Because that's just not. We just went. We're going super acoustic and super intimate, and then it's just okay, everybody. It's jumping
Yeah,
time.
it's jumping. No, like I
Yeah,
couldn't have done that. It would have been, it just wasn't the place for it. So I had to come up with
yeah.
something.
No, and I think like those little things that are different than what you expect, and like I said, what you expect is to hear the songs live, and you expect, because sometimes they're like, I feel like sometimes in those like transitional moments, artists just kind of take the opportunity to be like, this next one is whatever. And there's not, or even like, you have a little bit of a brief something just so you can like tune yourself up to wherever you need to be. But it's, and yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be anything. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but like having those moments that like people can share in together definitely goes a step farther.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What is your question for the next artist?
What is your like pre-show ritual? What are you doing an hour before the show, 5 minutes before you get on stage? What are you doing to get yourself in that mode to go out there and play your best show?
I like that. It's always there's a potential. I feel like that's a potential for either something very just like what you'd expect, but also like there could be somebody who just is like, I eat exactly like 13
Right.
slices of oranges, like I could
Exactly.
just, yeah. Like if you get somebody really superstitious, the answer could be really interesting.
Exactly that. I figured.
What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
It's like it is hard to answer that question, and this is going to sound like a canned like media trained response, but like, and I've had to fight this a lot too, but I don't see it as like a competitive, oh, you're different than this person, because I feel like if I start talking about it, like, yeah, I have answers about what I think sets me apart, but it'll probably come off as like pretentious or whatever, and that's not really not my intention, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do. Like, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think I was adding something and doing something different. But it also doesn't take away from all the other amazing people out there that are just as deserving of it. And I think living in New York City, where all my entire friend group is independent artists that are all trying to do the same thing, and we're all just trying to support each other and all that. But um, I think like I grew up with a mom who is a college English professor and a writer, and like I was raised on the English language from a very young age, and I think you won't ever listen to a DK song and find a single word out of place, is what I'll say. Like I've agonized over every single word, every conjunction, both from a like content standpoint and obviously a rhythmic standpoint to make sure it fits. Um, but I think that's what I take a lot of pride in, is like I agonize over lyrics and things like that, because I am really making music to impress my mom. So
It's like I said, back to that intentionality. like we were talking about earlier, back to now it makes sense why, like, it all the songs piece into a larger picture. Like it's everything, because the words, I mean, the things you're saying, the way you say them matter.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, that's, and I always like when it's like, not that I highly doubt there's anybody out there that really like writes music just kind of like on a whim kind of thing, like just
Right.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
like at random, not really like thinking about it. But like the intentionality does matter. And I think like it's kind of what takes a song from like fine to that's a good song,
Yeah.
and how it interacts with everything else going on in it. Like there's so many ways you can do it that it's like, it's back to that right and wrong, black and white thing. It's like, maybe it's okay that in that area there isn't a black and white, there's not like a right or wrong. It's because then it like it enables there to be more like I always find that sometimes with certain questions that I ask, and especially as we kind of get towards the end of like the questions and everything, it's sometimes I get answers that can be very similar, kind of all fall in the same vein, because it's like at the core, like we're all doing this music thing for a very similar reasons, very
Mm.
likely. But it's always interesting to me when it's like the way, then like the choice of words that someone uses to convey that like
Mhm.
answer is like that, like it sometimes it just resonates differently, or like even more like further than another answer. It's like how we can never, like, you'll never run out of love songs or breakup songs or anything like that, because it's like every single song like communicates that overall theme and message differently.
Yep.
And that's why certain songs connect with certain of us more than others do.
Yep.
Because it's the way that it's said, the way it's articulated, and just what that method of communication, if you will, um, ultimately means.
Yeah,
Maybe,
for
kind of.
sure. And I think unfortunately, like we've every new era of artists has it a lot harder because like going back to the 50s and 60s, like they used all the ways that you could write songs in very general terms. Like,
Hmm.
I want you, I need you, gotta have like that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we can't write that again. It's already been written 1,000 times. Like we have to keep getting more and more creative with how we convey those same kind of stories. And that's why I try to really be intentional about it and not just like, rely on stuff that's been said because not that it's lazy, but it's like, yeah, like someone's already covered that ground. Like, what ground am I covering? Like, how am I
Right.
bringing my personal experience to this like very core human experience of love or sadness or grief or and any of like the lofty topics that most songs end up boiling down to. Because you're right, it does have that innate human connection, and it's going to resonate with different people, different ways. And I think that's what's so cool though about the opportunity of being an indie artist now is like yes, it's more competitive than ever because it's so much easier to proliferate music, but it's also easier to reach people more than ever. And like your audience is out there and you don't need, a Lady Gaga audience to be a successful musician. Like I would love to find the core 100,000 people or 500,000 people that really, really like and get my music and be able to pay my rent from giving them what they want and having them buy into it. You know what I mean? Like those people are out there, and it's just a matter, I think, of pursuing it long enough, like working on your craft long enough to get to that core and uncover who those people are and give them what they're what they're striving for.
Yeah. It's very like, it doesn't have to, and it won't be for everybody. But I think that it will always be for somebody.
Hmm.
Like there's an there's an audience for every artist, I think, to some degree. Some, I think, like the deeper in the cracks and crevices that you go into, like little corner, like deep niche genres, your audience might be smaller because that's just how niche we've gotten. But like, I think that there's a set of ears that can be the home for any song.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding it,
Yep.
which sounds very simple, But we live in
It's
this
not.
world of social media and saturation and algorithms, right? Like who knows who knows who's receiving it and who knows if they're even the right person to be receiving it.
Yeah, and
So,
unfortunately too, as you know, it's like it is a pay to play game where like if you do have more money to buy ears, then you will probably get further than people who don't. But I also think that there's you got to be creative and industrious and find just like new ways of getting your message across. And I think there's people out there doing it really well that have just the right ingenuity and the right drive to do it. And I'm searching for that for myself as well. As I think we're all trying to find is like, yeah, how do I do something that feels authentic, that has the reach that I'm looking for, and also isn't going to cost me my firstborn child to get there. So
yeah, and with every like the approach that I try and take, especially in the world of social media and algorithms not typically, working in everybody's favor is like every opportunity you take to put something out there is just upping the chance that you might find that, it's like if you take 100 shots versus taking 1,000 shots, like the person who's taking 1,000 shots is going to make more than the person taking a
right.
100. So
Yep.
it's like you don't, and you never really know like when, like you might start to find who those people are or how you might like it's you can control the effort and the energy and the time that you put into it, and the results kind of just will be what they're going to be. But I think the end all be all being finding those people would make it worth the effort to try and get there, like it has to eventually pay off.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being
But
overly
I think
optimistic about that, but
yeah, but the people who like will look back and say like, yeah, I didn't get to where I wanted to go. Like I guarantee you a large percentage of them stopped before they really gave themselves the full chance because
right.
they only took 100 shots. They never took 1,000 shots.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what I tell myself to get through the times that are not as fun when you're an artist, where you feel like you're not getting anywhere or you're not able to get to the point where you want to. It's like, well, the only person who can tell me to stop is me, and I'm not going to do that. So,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
will take this thing until the wheels fall off, and at least I'll know that I did that. So,
Yeah. What impact do you want to have with your music and your artistry?
I mean, I think a lot about just like connection, and the artists that have impacted my life so much have always been very giving, and whether it's actual giving in terms of like giving back to society or just very generous with time and their energy and things like that, and because they know that they're bringing people together and they're allowing people to feel emotions or let go of emotions or forget about everything and just like go have a good time for a 45-minute set. Like music is such a powerful tool for people in so many ways. And so all I hope is that I'm able to have the same impact on other people that music's had on me to this point. In addition to all of obviously like, having a platform and having hopefully the influence to like help people in a more tangible way. I think that's something that I've always been passionate about. But on the larger scale, I think just impacting people and connect emotional connection.
Back to that like thing we're doing together, like with the
Yes,
live show stuff you're talking about.
exactly.
Um it's always nice when like the answers all kind of point in the same directions. It's like that's it's one thing to say it and then it's another thing to like live those ways and act in those with those intentions and everything. So but yeah, I mean, music is like it's a great method of community and communication. I think to some degree it's we've lost a little bit of it just from the standpoint that we've gotten so with the singles and everything and the saturation and whatnot. But um I always like to think that it really shows through when that's at the forefront of it all. So
Yeah, I mean, it's our job to take it back, right? Like we can
mhm.
we can fall in line with the system, or we can take a left turn and prioritize the things that we think have more of a lasting, meaning and impact, and go down that path. So I think that's kind of my mindset, and when I show up to do music every day.
I think that brings us to the final question, which is ultimately why music?
Never was a choice. It's not a question I can really answer, honestly. Like, I would prefer, honestly, like, so there's times where I'm like, oh, I wish I like was born without this inside of me, so I could just like go be a finance bro, make a ton of money, and like live out my life that way. But it's just not like, music is my reason for existence. Like, there's just no way around it. Like I mentioned earlier, like I go to bed at night thinking about it. I dream about it. I wake up thinking about it. I spend all day at work wishing I was doing it. I make ridiculous time, like I try to fit it in during the most ridiculous times, when it doesn't. There are times where it appears it may go nowhere, and I'm still at it as fervently as I can be. So music is my like connection to this life, and is why I'm here. And so it gives me more fulfillment than almost anything out there, other than like my family. um, so yeah, it's my reason for being, for sure.
My reason for being. I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Off the cuff. I wish that I
Well,
wish that
hold
was
on to
I wish
that.
that was the tagline. It might have to become one now.
It can. It certainly can. No, I mean, I don't think I have anything that can follow that up. I think you set it up like reason for being. That's that's the punchline of it all, right? That's it. That's the moral of the story. Um, yeah, that's you took any words right out of my mouth for that. So,
And that's a wrap.
uh, exactly. So, on that note, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.